Being a focused B2B consultant doesn't end with choosing your niche and your avatar. You also need to choose the vehicle that you will be using to serve your clients with. Stick with that vehicle and don't allow yourself to get distracted from it. Many B2B consultants are trying to dance at too many weddings at the same time, and as a result, they don't have fun on any of them. And I'm here to save you from this FOMO. My name is Michael Bohannes, and I help B2B consultants build scalable client acquisition systems and stop depending on referrals. In his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman describes several cognitive biases that have evolved as sort of software bugs in the human psyche. For example, Kahneman articulated the concept of confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek information that proves our already pre-existing point rather than seeking objective truth. Or loss aversion, which is a tendency to work twice as hard to avoid a loss rather than to realize a gain. Both of these are irrational behaviors that disprove the standard theory of man as being a homo economicus who is simply trying to act in his own best economic self-interest. But there are two cognitive biases that didn't make it into Kahneman's book, which are nevertheless wrecking the lives of countless B2B consultants. And these are what I call the speculator bias and the peddler's trench coat. What is the speculator bias? When I was studying for my MBA, there was a group of friends I was part of, and two of these friends had a very annoying habit. Whenever you suggested an idea to them that you were organizing some kind of outing or a party or any other activity to undertake together, both of these guys never committed to this activity until the very last minute. They always tried to stall. They always said, yeah, that sounds great. Let me check. I still have a couple of things going on, but I might come. They always try to keep their options open. My very good friend Flavio started calling them the two speculators because those guys were constantly on the lookout for anything that could be more fun than what you invited them to. And this was, of course, quite annoying. It was funny, but it was also quite annoying because you knew that every time they did show up to what you were organizing, that the main reason was not because you were their friend and they liked you, but the reason was that they simply didn't find anything that was better going on at the time. You were always and forever their plan B by default. And the speculator bias plays out in consultants who are trying to keep their options open. They have multiple types of things going on at the same time. I recently spoke to a prospect who was A, an operations consultant for a furniture company, B, a generalist business coach for various founders, and C, he was helping a wannabe public speaker to get speaking gigs. So he was effectively his manager. His reasoning was that these opportunities had simply come to him and he didn't want to leave money on the table. Of course, it's obvious how this is holding him back. He won't be good in any of these three areas. And so the by far bigger pile of money that he is leaving on the table is the money he could have made if he had specialized in any of these three areas. He could be a great operations consultant, he could be a great generalist business coach for founders, and he could be an amazing manager for public speakers. But just like the restaurant owner who is trying to sell sushi, pizza, and kebab, he will not be good at any one of those activities, and so he will stay mediocre, which means that he will never make above average hourly rates and therefore will constantly languish in a place of financial mediocrity. That's pretty obvious. And most people, when they hear of a case like this, they would agree, yeah, that is far too spread out. That is pretty obvious. And most people would recognize the speculator bias, this kind of tendency towards constantly looking on better opportunities elsewhere and taking whatever they can get. They would recognize it as something irrational because even my prospect understands that his choices are holding him back economically. But the thought of giving up some revenue in order to free up his time so he can focus more on one thing is so terrifying that he simply will not do it despite better knowledge rationally that he should abandon this revenue, which is kind of also a manifestation of Kahneman's loss aversion. He's scared of losing something, so he will rather stay in mediocrity instead of potentially gaining something much bigger. The second bias that B2B consultants suffer from that Kahneman doesn't mention in his book is what I call the peddler's trench coat. That's a more sneaky problem and is less overt than the speculator bias, and it happens even to very experienced consultants. So you know this guy in comedies and cartoons, the guy who hangs around, let's say, a train station in a big trench coat, and if you need to buy some kind of semi-legal substances, then he's your guy. He opens a trench coat and he's selling anything from lollipops to uranium sticks.
Zatracený krám. Witajcie w kramu uniwersalnym. Co pan szuka? Wszystko mamy. Kod packowy, fazole jantarowe, lizaki malinowe.
That guy is trying to have something for everyone. And while most consultants would claim that they don't have a peddler's trench coat, that they only serve one specific persona, they still have one. They still have a peddler's trench coat because they are selling different types of solutions to the same persona. They don't realize that they are being too broad in what they are selling. And that's when trying to sell low ticket versus high ticket comes in. My point is that it's a very bad idea to try to sell both low ticket and high ticket at the same time. High ticket is anything that sells for at least a 1K a month retainer or at least a 3K one-time fee. Basically anything that you would sell through a sales call. Low ticket are usually things between $50 and $500, let's say. Anything that you sell via a landing page. So that could be a cheap course, some kind of a PDF with content templates, or even a low ticket membership community. And of course, I'm only looking at B2B products here, B2B solutions, nothing for consumers. You could be tempted to say, well, I have this low ticket solution for people in my target audience who cannot afford the big thing. And once they've bought the small thing, maybe they will realize that I'm very good at what I do, and then they will kind of save up, and then they will be able to buy the high ticket thing. That is tempting, but it is a trap. It is an example of the peddler's trench coat. It's not a good idea because these two things, low and high ticket, require very, very different skills across many dimensions of your business. For example, first of all, a high ticket solution usually solves a more complex problem. We help B2B consultants build client acquisition systems and stop depending on referrals. There is no way I could possibly sell a low ticket course for $150 that would claim that it can solve this problem for consultants who depend on referrals and who are trying to figure out a way to go to market. There's just so many things that can go wrong in this. Low ticket requires a much more narrow problem definition. For example, Justin Welsh sells a $150 course on how to do content on LinkedIn and do it efficiently. That's a good narrow problem definition. Makes a lot of sense. Absolutely worth creating a 2-hour course that you then charge $150 for. But that solves a much more narrow problem than, let's say, a $10,000 course and training and coaching program would do for you. And so by having a low ticket as well as a high ticket solution, you're effectively selling two very different products to two different types of audiences. Again, you are the pizzeria who also sells sushi. Then there's a practical problem. Low ticket requires a much longer time before you get to any sustainable revenue level. If you're starting from zero, a low ticket product will take you far longer to get to, let's say, 10K a month than if you just were selling a 2K a month retainer product. In the second case, you just need 5 clients who are going to pay you $2,000 a month. And in the former case, you need, let's say you're selling something at $100, you need 100 people who say yes to you. So if you're starting out with tight finances, high ticket is your by far better solution. Then the topic of how you deliver client results. In high ticket, you can start out immediately because you can adjust the service as you go. Even if the client gives you some constructive and even negative feedback, you can adjust, you can work more, you can put in a little bit more effort just so that you keep that one client and deliver results for them. A low ticket product needs to be very good right from the start if you want to charge for it. You cannot really adjust it for any given current client. You can only adjust it for the next client. And that first client, the one who was not very happy, he might ask for a refund, or he could even say something negative about you online. And that's a big risk. Sure, you could, of course, launch a free beta and just ask for feedback, but that again lengthens the period in which you're not making any money. With high ticket, you can make money right from the start because if you have a base level of expertise and if you're willing to work hard to get clients results, you will be probably able to retain a 2K a month client. Then marketing. A low ticket product needs you to be really good with traffic acquisition. And there's effectively only 2 ways to get traffic. One is organic content. So you need to be a good writer or be good on video and become popular, or you have to run ads, which is a science unto itself. This is the second most important aspect in low ticket. The first one is having a great product, but the very close second is being able to generate interest for the product, that you do that via organic content or ads. In comparison with high ticket, you don't really need to be very good at marketing. You just put out some very basic content that shows to people that you are good at what you do, but the majority of your sales will be done through outbound and referrals. But you need way less skills when it comes to marketing, content, or ads when you are selling high ticket B2B than sales. Low ticket needs you to sell and convince and really get people involved through purely the written word alone, maybe a couple of videos, but it needs to be done asynchronously, not via one-to-one engagement with somebody on a sales call. You have to have a very good landing page, maybe a good video on the landing page, follow-up emails for those people who have abandoned the cart. So high ticket B2B, you don't need any of that, but you need to be very good on sales calls. You need to be very convincing, trust-inducing when you meet a complete stranger so that you sell to them. Again, very, very different skill set. And then client success. For low ticket, you need a very different client success strategy, maybe even a staffing strategy than for high ticket. What mostly predicts the success of a low ticket product is having a great product in the first place, and then having maybe something like a community manager. You get people into a community, let's say a school group or a Facebook group, and then you have somebody there who engages them, who answers their questions, and so on. That is going to be a big part of your success. When it comes to high ticket B2B, you need to be very service oriented. You need to do whatever the client needs you to do. You need to be very proactive. You need to communicate well with them, anticipating what they might want. Similar somewhat to the first skill set, but also different in that you need to focus more on one person and be a good one-to-one relationship builder rather than a one-to-many relationship builder at scale. Again, different skills to succeed at different things. So if you are trying to sell low ticket and high ticket at the same time, you're like the person who chases two rabbits and catches none. Focus and do one thing only. Both lanes require a specialized set of skills. And if you are trying to diversify, you are leaving long-term money on the table, far more than what you will be able to get through short-term money just by grabbing the opportunity as it is in front of you. If your goal is ultimately to be selling a low-ticket product en masse, that's perfectly fine. But if you don't have, let's say, 1 to 2 years of cash in the bank at this point, which will allow you to really take the time to become very good at these skills that I outlined, then maybe you want to look at doing high ticket first, build up a cash reserve, work with clients on a one-to-one basis, and only then gradually transition towards building an audience and selling a low ticket product. And that's exactly what the current king of low ticket products, Justin Welsh, has done. After he quit his job, he started writing online, but he also consulted with SaaS companies and trying to help them build and improve their sales teams. He did that quite regularly until he started selling his products, and only when the revenue that came from his products surpassed his consulting, then he gradually pared down most of his one-to-one engagements. At one point, he even used to offer one-to-one sessions for $1,000 or even $2,000. Even that he dropped in favor of purely focusing on his low-ticket sales. Now you may say, what about having a low-ticket product to onboard high-ticket clients later? The argument could go, well, they start with the low ticket product, then you ingratiate yourself with them, they start trusting you more and more, and then they will be ready to buy the high ticket thing from you. Maybe, but always consider that whenever you are building a low ticket product and investing effort in building up that skill stack, you are not investing this time in making your high ticket product better and improving your client acquisition systems there. You are neglecting the original skill stack, the high ticket skill stack that has brought you some level of revenue pretty quickly, and you are instead pouring it into the other skill stack. You can always become much better at what you do in the first skill stack. In keeping with the restaurant analogy, that is like when you, let's say, are a pizzeria and you deliver quite decent pizza, and then you say, well, people come to me and some of them might actually want sushi. I'll also start selling a little bit of sushi on the side, instead of doubling down and becoming like the top 0.01% in pizza. Speaking of which, there's a pizza restaurant in Vienna that we regularly go to, and the pizza there is absolutely out of this world. By far the best pizza I've ever eaten, and I've been in Italy a lot. The place is always full and the chef is there for everyone to see, and it's a joy to behold and an even bigger joy to eat. He's not branching out into other cuisines. And while I always get people who nod in agreement, they say, yes, of course, it would be crazy for him to start selling sushi. Consultants, especially those starting out, often completely fail to apply this insight, this obvious point, to themselves. Instead, they are trapped in speculator bias. They are putting on their peddler's trench coat every day and go to market with all their bank of different products, selling to everyone. Now, I get it that there's a temptation to diversify your client acquisition efforts, and I think you are right with that. I'm actually in favor of diversifying client acquisition tactics up to a point. So Alex Hormozi, is one of the things that he's famous for is saying one product, one avatar, one channel, and that alone can get you to $1 million. Now, I agree with 2 out of these 3 things. I don't necessarily agree with one channel only, because if you are a B2B consultant and you want to get to $1 million in revenue and you only rely on LinkedIn, I don't think you will succeed. Why? Because LinkedIn does not allow you to contact more than, let's say, 100 people every week. You can kind of work around it. There's maybe a couple of ways you can contact people in groups that is outside of the weekly quota. You can send emails, but pretty much at 100 people a week, you will max out. But that is not enough. And so therefore, I am a fan of diversifying your client acquisition methods up to a point. I say have one social network, one video repository, one main content repository that tends to be YouTube for most people, and then one scalable outbound method that tends to be cold email. So that's what I've chosen for myself. I have LinkedIn, YouTube, and cold email. I don't branch out into other social networks, and I would recommend you do the same. One social network is difficult enough. So before you've mastered one and you're getting reliable inbound clients from one social network, don't start another. But, and here's the reason why these three work really well in unison. Because if you, for example, were to focus purely on cold email, and you could get to $1 million in revenue per year just on cold email. However, if you do that and you don't also do some content, you are hampering your chances on the sales calls. Why? Because people who have also seen some of your content between the booking and the actual sales call will be much more likely to convert versus if they hadn't seen anything from you. Content builds trust. But at the same time, if you were to only do content and then you miss out on doing some outbound, you would get very, very patchy client acquisition. It would be unpredictable and you could go for 2 months without getting a single new client. So that is all fine. And I am in favor of diversifying client acquisition. However, if you argue in favor of low ticket plus high ticket product, you have not diversified your client acquisition systems. You've diversified your products and the avatars you're selling to. And that I think is a big mistake because of all these things I have mentioned before. You could argue, well, I would like to use the low ticket product as an onboarding tool into the high ticket product. But I don't think this is the economically best decision because you have, if you started with the high ticket product, you have built a skill stack in that domain. Now you are trying to diversify into this other skill stack, which, as we discussed, is very, very different. Compare that with a situation if you were to diversify within high ticket. For example, what I could do is that I could slice out one aspect of the Alpha Lead Academy, for example, the cold email module, and sell it as a standalone thing for, let's say, $1,000 or $2,000. That would still remain in the realm of high ticket, relatively speaking. I could use it as an onboarding tool into the rest of the Alpha Lead Academy. It would still remain within the marketing and sales methods that I advocate. For example, it could be a downsell. If somebody really cannot afford the main thing, I can sell them the smaller thing. And then it could be seen as the very first stage. If they graduate from that, they can then go into the overall Alpha Lead Academy where they also learn how to do content at scale and very efficiently, how to get virtual assistants to kind of take some of the work away from them and so on. So that could be then low ticket version, lower ticket version, 1 to 2K can be the onboarding tool into the main product. And then once they graduated from that, I could also create a $30,000 a year mastermind where I take the graduates from the Alpha Lead Academy and put them through a program that will get them to, let's say, 7 figures. There, I'm still diversifying my products. I'm branching out to other sub-avatars, but I'm not building a completely different skill stack, which most likely will sell to people that are unlike the high-ticket people I'm already selling to. Also imagine, once I've had several clients, and we've had some 130 clients in the Alpha Lead Academy now, once I've done that, imagine how much easier it would be for me to upsell somebody to a $30,000 a year mastermind versus how difficult it would be for me as a relative newbie in low ticket to generate $30,000 from a low ticket sale. It would take a hell of a long time. So at a time when consultants can get clients all over the world, you can really niche down into one very specific avatar and get clients anywhere in the world. There's no reason why you should need to diversify your products in order to reach multi-6 to even 7 figures. So the message is, don't be a speculator with a peddler's trench coat. One niche, one avatar, one product, not 2, not 3, just one can get you to multi-6 figures and even 7